Good evening, everybody, or shall I say good night, everyone. Tonight, let's or to those on the East Coast, good morning. Now, tonight, I know we've done this show before. I know I've done this type of show before, and I'm gonna do it again. But the only reason I bring it up is because Monday, December 9th, was the untimely passing. Marks the 2-year anniversary of the untimely passing of one Debbie Lusignan, aka the Sane Progressive. And while she was very controversial, she was someone who taught a lot of people about how the world works and how life is. And someone like Debbie, as much of a character as she could be, she was a very knowledgeable and intelligent person, and she was also a very beautiful soul. And when people like her stopped doing live streams, it was kind of the beginning of the end in that regard. But it's a crazy thing. The crazy thing about it is the most memorable moments of watching her live streams weren't the amount of knowledge she would give people, wasn't the amount of knowledge she would give people, wasn't the insight she would explain to her massive audience. It wasn't any of those things. It was some of the more entertaining sound bites. Some of the craziest things she'd yell about. Things like, if you got to take over the Democratic Party, you got to deal with the corruption and the fraud. We're just a bunch of monkeys driving cars, and you people will never get it. I mean, it was just, it was so funny listening to her rant and rave at people. What are you people going to learn? It was just hilarious. And the funniest moment I remember is when I was impersonating her on a live stream and then saying the same thing. We're just a bunch of monkeys driving cars. You can't. The fraud. You can't take over the Democratic Party unless the corruption and the fraud. And she said, she's watching me do the impersonations. And she's like, it needs work. And I'm like, oh. I couldn't stop laughing for days. It was hilarious. Oh my God. It was so funny. But, now it's ironic that the last video I'm playing, she's so calm and cool, and just relaxed, just sitting and talking about life and talking about what people should be focused on, and that's just, and how to avoid the nonsense. And, I wish we could have a few more. I wish there were a few more sane progressives in this world. Be a better place. But then again, I'm sure her stuff is still on the internet. Yeah, there's just... But enough of me talking. Let's just play this. And let's get going on our Saturday night movie feature presentation. And that's the name. CSHR Radio presents a Saturday night movie featured presentation. So let me get that banner down. Let me get that. Let me. Let's see. Because it just gives me more time to think about Debbie and how great she was. It was just so many things that she was on point. And I don't think she really got the credit she deserved. People are inspired by her and everything, but it was just... I don't know. It just seems like she didn't really get the credit she deserved until after she passed away, and it's a shame. So, and it's just, I can't believe it's been 6 years since she last stopped doing a live stream, and I can't believe it's been 2 since she passed away. So it's crazy how time flies. But I also want to thank William Houston, R.I.P. William Houston. But I want to thank him for uploading this video somewhere, so I was able to post it on the Power of Now page and this page. So now you get to enjoy our movie feature presentation.
Okay, I'm back. I forgot the rule. You cannot play copyrighted music even for like 10 seconds to make a political point on Facebook, or they will delete your videos. I've had so many videos deleted when I've done that. So now I gotta build the feed up all over again. I get a little swept away though with, Jesus Christ Superstar from the 70s, because it has so many great lessons and parallels to the kind of corruption and way that power plays out, and how the people actually become the mob for the power elites. They were the ones shouting, "Crucify him," weren't they? So let's see, we'll just wait till this feed loads. I want to talk about, the reason I wanted to do this video today is because I call the Sane Progressive mailbag. And now I don't get as much mail as I used to, as I've kind of really pulled back the content of the videos and really changed the focus of my videos away from the news analysis, kind of breaking down the deceptions of the day, how a given deceit and policies playing out and the real motives behind that. And I know people really like that. But at some point it really has come to me that it's all the same story. It all boils down to how the power establishment, which we have codependently enabled and propped up, is playing out any given lie or delusion or policy to maintain money and control. It boils down to that. So, and I took to heart what a lot of my viewers have asked me, and what a lot of people have legitimately offered as a criticism, which is, what is the solution? What is the solution? And I really have said this again and again. It is a paradigm shift of our thoughts, and it's kind of a collective evolution of the mind, which I think is how we will have real power. But it is not something that a lot of people groove on. I don't get a lot of people even wanting to watch these videos. Now, if I talk about something like Parkland, I get over like 1,500 views on this channel. If I talk about moving outside the ways that we are controlled to take real power, and actually you can just skip right over all of that. I mean, we could skip over so much of this stuff if we stay plugged into it, and having our conversations around it, and having everything being a reaction. It's a symbiotic relationship of codependency and enabling, and power abuse and codependency. It really is that. And so the real key to freedom and empowerment collectively as a people is about moving outside of that. It is not about staying plugged in and bending ourselves around how we react to each part of the play that is rolled out for us, and our success really is going to depend on how much we are able to free our minds from this insanity, this manufactured, deliberate delusion that is being pulled over our eyes. So I wanted to play a very brief video from not Pontius Pilate singing, "Then you are a king, it's you that say I am. I look for truth and find that I get damned." But what is truth? Is truth unchanging laws? We all have truths. Are mine the same as yours? Crucify him, crucify. What do you mean? You'd crucify your king? We have no king but Caesar. See, I'm doing it again. That's what happens when I start with the Jesus Christ Superstar. Okay, I gotta get back on track, Debbie. Back on track. But it's so fun. So fun. I gotta get a purple cape. All right, hold on. Let me get to the video that is relevant to this topic and why I wanted to come on today.
One of the most effective things that the power...
I'm not going to show you James. You know James. James Corbett did this. It's a 5-minute and 38-second video. And it's James Corbett saying, "I am a sustainable free trade globalist." But I wanted to play this particular video because it really speaks to what I'm talking about, and I want to bring it into a larger discussion. So let's listen. Let's listen to what Mr. Corbett has to say on the power of controlling language and the mind. All right, okay, it's you hit it, James.
Powers that shouldn't be have ever done things that the powers that shouldn't be have ever done is to hijack our language, to lay stake to certain words and phrases, and thereby to lay stake to entire ideas, concepts, territory of the mind. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a phrase like free trade. If you were to come out today and say, "I'm a proponent of free trade," people will automatically assume that what you are saying is, "I'm for NAFTA, I'm for the TPP, I'm for the World Trade Organization." When in reality, those ideas, those concepts, those bodies and organizations and deals are the exact opposite of free trade. They are managed trade, restricted trade, controlled trade. That's when the gangsters who claim monopoly over geographical territories get together and say, "Okay, I'll give you a little bit of this if you give me a little bit of that." They're taking the pie and dividing it up and saying, "I'll let you have a little bit of my cherry pie, but I want some of that apple pie." It's the exact opposite of what is meant in plain language by free trade, as in free people freely transacting and interacting across whatever lines on whatever imaginary map in whatever way they feel is best, without a third party, usually the banksters and their cronies, coming in to intervene in that transaction. That is free trade, but we can't even talk about that concept. We don't even have a term for it, because the term for it, free trade, has been co-opted into this North American Free Trade Agreement and the Trans-Pacific Partnership and all of that. They have hijacked that language. Here's another example: globalism. Now that's an interesting example. In many ways, I regret that the label that I have used, that I have applied to the enemies of freedom, is globalist, because it is true in a sense. There is a globalist ideology that believes that there should be a one world government that controls all interactions between all people and sees everything, knows everything, controls everything, and of course, by the way, in parentheses, run by the banksters and their political cronies. What are you going to do? Now that is certainly one form of globalism, but it's not the only form of globalism. What is globalism? It is the idea that, again, free people should be able to freely interact and transact with any people across whatever imaginary lines on whatever map, that we are free human beings, and that I don't need a special, let this person go by from the Queen in order to cross an imaginary line on a map. All of the things that we now, unfortunately, take so much for granted that we don't even pause to think about them, but that are truly affronts to freedom. So, again, the idea, the word, the concept of a free human being has been, I'm a globalist. I'm not the loyal subject of Queen Elizabeth, but again, the idea, I can't go out and say I'm a globalist because people will not understand what I mean by that. Do you understand the insidious nature of this? Let's take one more example. Sustainability. Of course, when you say this, again, immediately, what do people think of? It is Agenda 21. It's the United Nations. It's, hey, we'll take our international body and we'll claim this section of the globe and we'll use it for our purposes and we'll call it sustainability. Of course, I mean, who isn't against that other than the cronies who get to profit directly from that? But what about the idea of local resilience, localism, the idea of, well, we can do it ourselves, we can grow things, we can trade amongst each other and profit amongst each other locally, and we can protect the environment because we don't want, to live on a dung heap. That is sustainability, isn't it? But again, that idea, that word sustainability has been co-opted and has come to mean part of this UN Agenda 2030 whatever nonsense. Again, time after time after time, real ideas, real concepts, real possibilities for freedom are co-opted because the language itself to describe those concepts has been co-opted. It's a very insidious process. It's, in some ways, the most fundamental way that we are controlled. We're controlled through our language. Students of Eric Blair will be well aware of this. Perhaps students of Ludwig Wittgenstein, if there are any philosophers in the crowd. The limits of our language are the limits of our reality. And if you control our language, you control reality itself. Maybe that's what Karl Rove was talking about in that infamous quotation. Link in the show notes if you don't know what I'm talking about. So, I think this is a pretty important concept. It's something that I've talked about a number of times over the years. I will definitely be doing more work on this, but I'm interested in hearing your take on this. Specifically, I've given a few examples: sustainability and globalism and free trade. What are some other words or phrases that have been hijacked by the powers that shouldn't be to serve their own ends, to divert us from the path of true freedom? I'm very interested to hear what you guys come up with. I think this is something that we need to explore in much greater detail, so I'm looking forward to doing that with you. James?
That's James Corbett over on the Corbett Report. He did that video November 28th, 2017, and it's called I Am a Sustainable Free Trade Globalist, for people who are asking what that is I just played. You can look that up over on YouTube and watch and read the conversation in the comments, because there's 723 comments of people having a discussion around the control of language. The control of language is incredibly potent and powerful. And I wanted to bring this up because a lot of things that people send me in my inbox, it's commentators, it's news stories, it's articles, and it's about all these very evil plans about how these evil powers that be want to kill a large percentage of us. They want to poison us. They want to take our land. They want to do all these evil things. And it's not that I don't think that the powers that be, or that shouldn't be, are absolutely going to expand what they just do. When people talk about they can't believe some of these things would happen, it just is always a trip to me. It's what they already do. The playbook is of the current power structure and establishment, and for people who may be new here, and most of you I'm sure are not, but when I talk about power elite, it really is nothing more than billionaire moneyed interests, military industrial power, and the behind the scenes shadow, I don't even want to say shadow agencies, the behind the scenes government agencies, CIA, FBI, DHS, NSA, the three-lettered guys, the three-lettered entities that we know operate with black op budgets and have a long history of being documented to be committing these kind of behaviors that people are worried about them doing again. It's just silly. So, absolutely, these things, they have plans. They've got plans. It's not really even hard to figure out what they're trying to do at its base core level. This very small group of people have been taken enormous wealth, and enormous wealth at that level means enormous power, and they are directing events so that they stay in control and they have a lot of money. It's really not even beyond that. And so within that, when you take everything from the people and you have a mass transfer of wealth that has been taken through illegal means and bullying and violence and deception and all these very, very sad constructs of what can play out through human history and is not outside of us, all of the shadow and the light lives within each of us. So yeah, they're going to keep doing what they've always done. And they are, I think, at this point, what we're seeing with how bizarre it's getting and how much further it keeps getting taken is basically they are very frightened right now. The group of people, you got to think in terms of how think about how you would feel if you had amassed an enormous amount of wealth and power based on lying your ass off to everybody, manipulating people, stealing from them and enacting violence against them, and tricking good people into going along with seemingly good intended parties or politicians who ultimately are manifesting the same kind of violence and theft, just in different guises. You'd be afraid. You'd be afraid. You know, it's like, look at what's happening. They live in gated communities. They live behind walls. They do not interact with the peasantry and the masses. They live in a separate bubble. And that bubble is never, ever, 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 ever going to be enough to make them feel safe, because it has become now protecting everything that they've gotten by their ill-gotten. It's become about protecting their ill-gotten gains and their delusion of power. Okay, so these are ultimately a bunch of very, very scared individuals. And so that is why they are doing these absolutely nutty butter, insane things that really are not signs of people who are really powerful. Powerful people don't have to be like, okay, all right, I know what we'll do. I got it. Okay, all right. People don't like this. People, you could see what happened with Trump and Sanders. Now, granted, neither one of them was what they presented to be, but people do not like us. They do not like the wealth. They do the corporate. They're talking about corporations. They're talking about this system being unfair. People are not liking this. All right, so we need to control them. We need to control them. Even the controlled opposition. Even people are starting to see through the controlled opposition. What do? I know. Okay, well, let's see. We got to control them more. It's like we got to take away more of their rights. We got to get away so that we can watch them all the time and have surveillance cameras on every corner. And we need to figure out how we can, they can't move. They can't operate outside of where we can watch them, because they're eventually going to get us. So we have to control everything. We got to control everything. So I got it. Let's. They're really vulnerable around their kids. I know they're really vulnerable around their kids, and they don't seem to be wanting to give up their constitutional rights and just wholeheartedly disarm. Even people who are on the left don't think all of that should go away. So I know what we'll do. We'll stage events where they think that their children are in constant danger, and the only way that they can keep their children safe is if they give up their rights to us and that we get to protect them. And so they willingly allow all kinds of mass rights rollbacks and civil liberty violations and take away their means to protect themselves, and we're going to manipulate through their children. That's not somebody who is like powerful and strong. That's somebody who is a total flat-out coward manipulator, two-bit abuser, and liar. That's pathetic. It's pathetic. But we give up our minds to them, and we're like, oh my God. So people who unfortunately, it's really sad, because the fear, the whole mind control through fear, you know, it's giving your critical thought over to your limbic system. And people in that place can be deceived by two-bit parlor tricks that they wouldn't be taken in by were they not driven into a brainwashing propaganda narrative of fear. So they're like bad comic book supervillains. And they're really not that brilliant. They're really not that smart. The only power that the current system and the people who are playing these absolutely bizarre, psychotic mind games with the public, the only thing they have is fear itself. Remember what I was saying? The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. It's true. It's true. So a lot of people are sending me all of these talking points. They want to kill 150 million people of us. They want to poison us with vaccines. They want to do. Yes, I know. Yeah, they do. So their success will only happen if we give up our minds and our power to the game. That's it. That's it. These are a bunch of scared people who do not have the will of the people on any side with them. Nobody is with them. And so we give them so much more power and credit than they deserve. Because now, I'm not saying that ugly things can't and won't happen, but I think that in giving up our minds and our fear to these people, we are missing some really, really big points. Okay, one thing is there is a vast difference between putting laws on the books so that they have the ability to do these things and actually doing them. They do not have the people with them. They don't. So you want to see something change and you want to see something happen? Let them move into the open with it. Because you start actually putting people and trying to take people and put them away. You start actually, and you start seeing mass die-offs of people. When it moves into the open, they don't have the people, which is why they have cameras and surveillance and constant 24/7 fear and manufactured tragedy events to keep us bowing to them. And it's so sad because the solution to this whole thing is so simple. It's so simple. The tenets of what is required for us to have real power is not even hard. It is to not allow ourselves to react and be controlled in the way that they are directing us. And it's not hard. You don't do what they want us to do. You just become, you know what you become like? You become, did you ever have parents out there? Anybody who's ever had a parent, anybody who's ever had a kid. Do you remember when your kids were little? Remember when your kids were little? And they could be brats, right? And sometimes they would throw their temper tantrums. And what would you do? You'd pick them up, you'd scoop them up, and you'd walk them right out of the store. And you'd be like, you stop it. You calm down. You're not getting the Slinky. I told you. You got a Slinky last week. You broke it. You're not getting another one. What do kids do? What do? they make themselves limp and you can't pick them up. Remember? You're like, oh, damn you. And then they make themselves weightless. And there's nothing you can do with them because they're limp and you're trying to pick them up and you're like, stay still. That's what we need to do. Right there. We need to not go along with it. The power they have is us implementing their crazy plans and going along with their lies and talking in the constructs of the insanity. And so the big shift right now, people write me and they're like, let's go to Washington and have a protest, or like, let's, talk about the enormous ways that they want to destroy us and kill us. And no, I'm not doing it anymore. If you want if any revolution that is going to be successful, and I don't like the term revolution in the classic sense, but if you're going to have a revolution, let it be the revolution of the mind, and to be able to think outside of the lies and the constructs that they have baptized into this public and citizenry, infected like a virus, so that we literally do not have the ability to think outside the way we are directed. We are in a cage of our minds right now. And you break the cage of the minds and you break the lie and the whole thing stops. It is that simple. It's that simple. That really entails a mass deprogramming, but the deprogramming isn't always just being an evangelical preacher to other people who do not understand the manipulations. It is looking into how we speak and think and react and give up our power to the fear. The control we have, the real control we have right now in the face of everything that is happening, is our refusal to play the game by the rules that are being dictated to us. That's the power right there, beginning and end. And taking the individual power will collectively manifest into a change of the whole. That is it right there. But how can we have any kind of new direction when we do not even know how to think outside of the ways that are dictated to us? If you can't form a thought in terms of manifesting a different way of being into the world, then you can't manifest a different reality. You just can't do it. So it's that programming. And right now, if the whole world was like, if the whole discussion and dialogue was like this circle about the way we think, if it was all encompassed into this one circle, we would be less than a dot in the middle of that, because we have been so myopically focused and so spun that we can't even understand the basic concepts of operating outside of that. And it really all is individual choice. The only power we have truly is how we decide to respond and direct our behavior in the face of the control. And so I'm really concerned, because I know from personal experience what happens when the focus becomes about they want to do this, they want to do that, they want to, it's talk. There's talk of genocide. There's talk of encampments. Scary stuff. Not that the wackadoodles who have done that all over the globe and have been rewarded with vast amounts of wealth and power for that kind of evil, I don't think there's another word for it, behavior. You positively reinforce that. Of course, they're going to attempt to manifest it here, but it doesn't mean that they are in complete, total control, and that the only way forward for this to play out is into all of these things that we fear are going to happen. And I really do believe that there is a big danger is you manifest what you fear. You manifest what you fear because you start thinking in the terms of of that dynamic and operating and moving in the ways of that control. And I don't think it's empowering. I don't think it's empowering. So I've tried to make a mix with my videos of talking about the premises of breaking the lie, breaking the core, not just the lie, any given lie of, you know, they're lying about the real aims of a policy, or they're lying about the real events that are dictating moving into the next, you know, war and violence. I mean when I say break the lie, I mean break the foundational core premise of what keeps us attached to those same manipulations and us being subject to those same manipulations. That's what I mean by breaking the lie. So you really can't break the lie by tuning in to a group of corporately owned, state-infiltrated media sources that exist to propagandize people, to keep them organizing under methods they control and keeping them attached to political parties that are all doing the same thing. It's enough if you break the foundational core lie, if you can get the underlying premise that you don't tune into liars to understand the truth of the events of the world, you're done. You're done right there. It's a, you know, and so it's adhering to like a foundational baseline of premises that when you can hold each individually, there is no pulling us in. There's no pulling us in. If you understand that once you understand who owns the media and how it is infiltrated on all sides, even within social media, once you understand that, you're not going to be susceptible to the latest controlled opposition candidate. You're not going to be susceptible to the latest sales campaign of government protection by taking away our rights based on fear-mongering. If you understand the basic premise that here's a basic premise, very simple. If the corporate media and the politicians on the right and the left, as they are now, are all coalescing to sell you the same strategy that really boils down to taking away civil rights and civil liberties and constitutional rights because they're going to protect us, which they never do, then don't go along and march and give energy and voice to that campaign. You know that the media is owned by the power establishment that wants to keep control, money, and power. So they're not going to direct us to be doing any kind of organizing and pushing campaigns because they're trying to make things better for us. They're trying to protect their own ass and make themselves feel safe and win the game of risk. That's all. So it's breaking those core foundational premises. And so I'm not even so when people are like, you got to talk about this, I do try to give examples because I think sometimes an example of how far they'll manipulate or lie can drive home so that people will understand the core underlying premise that we need to get. But, right, and so I just get troubled, and I see a lot of people. My personal take on everything right now, and it's been a very painful thing for me to come to terms with, is I think that it is going to have to play out to some pretty challenging absurdities, disturbing things, and painful lessons here for this lie to break, and for the country to get out of this stupor, to this zombified stupor that we have been put into, with either people actively still participating in this game and feeling like they're having some empowerment by repeating the same strategies and tactics which have played out to making everything worse the harder we do it, to being understanding what's going on and just feeling resigned and defeated by it, and not really feeling any sense of empowerment by seeing these extremes happening. And so there's a deer in the headlights for a lot of people who, like, what do you do in the face of this kind of deception and this kind of manipulation? And so I ultimately think it is the people who are going to out this and act as the catalyst for this to move into a different direction are going to be the people who are doing it themselves. Because it's a simple rule in every empire that falls. It's hubris that always brings it down every single time. They have way too much of a sense of their own power, far beyond what actually is. They don't understand the laws of unintended consequences. They are in an illusion of having total control that can't exist no matter how many bombs, drones, and lies that you tell. And so you can see it now. What is happening is so extreme. It is so bizarre. And the good news is a lot more people understand and recognize this than we give people credit for, because if we tune into anything to do with the reality of the media, or even the alternative media that spends all the time trying to talk in the context of the events that are being directed at us, so that the whole conversation is staying within this, you don't understand that so much of the country has already moved outside of this. They don't have the country. They don't have the world. The people don't want this. They don't have it. And so, yeah, they're going to try to keep it by force. But even then, the people who, once they start doing that, it's going to touch people that the people who have been involved in it start to care about. It's going to break. So they don't have the people. The only thing they have is fear and deception. And our inability to see where our real power lies. And our real power is simply walking outside of it and walking away. And I think there's a hashtag walk away movement, which is, I don't know what that is. You're going to go become a Republican, or you're going to become, I don't even know what that is. Hashtag walk away is really what it should be, is walk away from the entire game and the entire lie and refuse to prop up any of it, and to move into envisioning and having discussions entirely outside of this narrow, myopic mind screw that is inflicted upon us. And that, I think we also should do a hashtag break the lie. Hashtag break the lie. I don't know how you guys gonna co-opt that one. Break the lie. You are the lie. You're gonna they'll try it though. They'll try it. If we get a hashtag break the lie, they'll talk about how they own the truth. You can walk away. We can make a collective decision not to buy their damn phones. People can't walk away from 5G, then don't buy the technology that needs to be bought to plug into it. Get rid of your smartphone. Don't buy a smart house. They are not, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, you think they are not nearly as powerful as we think they are. And the technology, I'm going to tell you something, and it's interesting to have a conversation with somebody who understands tech. And a lot of the things that we think they have like all this power to do and all this technology, I think you don't understand how the tech game works. A lot of their tech doesn't even work. You have to realize that. What do we have? Look at the United States Army, okay? Do you know how much tech that they are paid for that never ever works? Why do you think we have $1 trillion planes that you spend $1 trillion of a plane and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do with $1 trillion investment? Because the people up top really don't care about competence and being affected. They're thieves. And do you know what they do? They're like, they're like, make this thing, Mr. Engineer, Mr. Smart Tech Guy. And the engineers are like, we can't make that thing. You can't make the thing. And they're like, it doesn't matter if you can make the thing. It doesn't matter if you can make the thing. Just make it so that it looks like you can make the thing. Have you seen the Tesla car that was supposed to be in space? It looked like a Barbie car going around in like Star Trek. It was like as good of a fake as Star Trek. You think they're not sending cars to fly around it? They're making so much of this shit up. And even the people who think they have this tech have been taken in by the people who have been stealing and just playing games. They don't have as much technical ability as you think they do. So, that's what I mean when it's like we give them far more credit. I'm not saying they don't have some violent tech, and I'm not saying they don't have the ability to do some ugly things. They do. But I think that I'm trying to talk about how we give them far too much credit. You think they're in control, right? You think they're so in control? You start doing this to the American population. They don't know how to work tech. Do you know that? They don't know how to work the tech. And their ability to retain and control is the people who do know how to work the tech using it for their ends. If they don't know how to use the tech and the tech people decide, hey, you know what? We think we're going to use the tech against you. It's the laws of unintended consequences. And everybody, it's just, when I hear these conversations, people are like, they think about it in terms of like these all-powerful people who are implementing things that the vast majority and collective do not want and would not support on any side if they understood the reality. And so once it becomes to that level and it starts opening and if they actually start doing these things, the rules of the game can change very, very quickly. And so a lot of the things that people focus on right now, we are projecting our own fears. And that projection of fears and power is as vital for them to be able to do this as the actual, manipulations and physical things that they're doing. So the reason I did this video is because we have an incredible amount of power that we have no idea to actually take. We don't know how to take our power because we are taken in by the false ideas, the fear tactics, the manipulations, the repetitive cycle of controlled opposition where they use the exact same strategy of co-opting whatever populist idea or policy or movement, and then they take some person that they control to say that they're going to give it to them if you stay under this umbrella, and they never, ever, 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 ever deliver it, nor do they have to, because it is enough for when one person gets tired of who never delivered in the first place and they understand who that was a lie in a game and that they were a sellout, they just need to replace it with somebody else. But even that's getting old. Even that is not holding its sway like it did. So there is within this, if we refuse to go along with the mindset and the brainwashing and the fear and the talking points that are directed to us, and see it as an opportunity and move in a different way, there is an enormous opportunity here. It's an enormous opportunity. But we don't think that way because we get, and I understand that because I have been in that place. You get afraid and you get despondent. So the victory every day is to not give into the fear and the despondency and to make a personal choice to not focus on it, to not be, it's good for people to understand this, and it's good for people to be able to have these perceptions so that we can have conversations on a grassroots level so that it slowly touches and it grows, because they can they can take over corporate media and social media all they want. It does not mean that people are still talking to each other. They're still talking to each other. And people, even in the worst of the most authoritarian regimes, still talk to each other. If they had to write notes or mime things out or come up with code, people talk to each other. And so, it's important so that we can have these discussions and touch who we can. But it is nothing more than feeding exactly what the current power operatives want, is to give up our fear and our minds to it in this way. And so it really should be it should be a balance. It should be an understanding of trying to talk in ways that inform and uplift people while living our lives in the best way that we can while we're here. Because that's all we got anyways. You can live your whole life under the paralysis of that, and that's what was happening with me with this channel. Is why I wanted to talk to people about it, because I became very paralyzed for a time after I did the exposures of the staged events, and that really bothered me on a lot of different levels, and it threw me into a full-out depression. It really did. And I think I'm coming out of it now just because I'm sick of it. I'm just sick of giving my mindset over to it. I'm just fed up. It's like, even if they do it, it's like, whatever. Enough. Okay. Whatever. It's, I try to keep perspective of all part of a bigger cycle. I don't think we should stay attached to our fear. I don't think it's where we should be. Reaction from fear doesn't really play out in empowerment if it's just coming from an emotionally reactive place. Fear can tell you something. Fear can tell you something's wrong. But if you are in a constant state of having your fight or flight reflex stimulated, and you are constantly looking to respond to trying to change some external thing so that you can placate what is being triggered, it doesn't really empower. Fear, if emotional reactivity around fear is not a great place to figure out strategy and tactic from. Emotional reactivity and that is touched off by plugging into any of this is also, I don't think, going to do much good. So, creation of community. I mean, it's interesting. I took a walk last night. We walk a lot. And it is amazing how people are living shelled up in their houses. It is summer. It's summer. And people have beautiful yards around here. You look at all these beautiful yards and you don't see anybody out in them. I mean, there's a few people. I don't want to pigeonhole everybody, but people are locked up in their houses. They're looking at their TVs. They're looking at their computer screens. They're not going out into the world. We're not interacting with our neighbors. We're not living in the real world. If you want a means of staying under control, being on the computer all the time or tuned into media all the time or looking at your phone all the time is one of the biggest things without even them really having to do very much. I mean, I'm looking around. It's like, what are they gonna? It's like they already the people who are arranging this control. They don't even need to do anything. Everybody's already locked in. If when we're attached to that, I mean, really, I think one of the biggest things, and what I'm hoping to do as I move forward to make more connections in the real world and start meeting people, I think one of the biggest revolutionary things we can do is to stop being on this and to come back out into the real world. You know, people are like so disturbed that, you know, we're going to lose this tech and we won't be able to talk to each other anymore. Maybe we'll talk to each other in person. Wouldn't that be kind of a trip? People actually talking to each other in person, people having to go out of the house to create community. People, you know, there's a lot of things that could be very, very positive in this restructuring, in these falls, and some of the hard things playing out. Because in times of these things that are crisis, you start dealing with the real again. You start dealing with the everyday. You start dealing with the survival, and you start having to learn how to cooperate and be with each other, unless you want to succumb completely to the fall. And so there could be, you know, people, the internet, maybe it has, I think that it will be as powerful as we are able to transition this connection that we have made with each other outside of this realm and move it into the world of the real, outside of this kind of limbo state of talking to each other through the distance. Because a lot of people who talk about being on social media a lot will ultimately say that they feel more lonely and isolated because of it, even if they are having conversations and talking to people. Because when you shut the computer off, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. And one of the things that has been the hardest about doing this channel has been the vast majority, especially when I don't do this so much anymore, because I've pivoted to just having these more generalized community discussions, and I've kind of abandoned trying to, you know, shake people out of the burning building and get them to leave. This is probably the most isolating thing I've ever done in my entire life. The vast majority of what I do, especially, you know, what I was doing up until a couple months ago, was spending hours a day researching some of the most depressing realities going on in this world, trying to break them down, putting together a message a lot of people didn't want to hear anyways. And 95% of it was alone. So it was like 6 hours a day of research, and then maybe 45 minutes a day doing a video, or every couple days. And in that, giving my whole life, you don't see anybody. And so I'll be like, at the end of this, I ultimately felt more isolated and by myself than I ever have in my entire life. Even though, you know, you've got so many people who love you and like you. And I'm like, do I? Because I don't talk to anybody, and I'm just talking into a phone by myself for an hour. It's like, it's isolating. It's really, really isolating. It's not that I don't feel like some kind of connection with you guys and love you in the way that you can love through this kind of removed venue, but it's not really real life human interaction. And I think we need to find that real life human interaction. Go to the beach. Get off your computer and go to the beach. Go to the beach. Go to the beach. Don't give up your entire life to this. It's gonna out. If every single one of us stopped talking today and didn't do any more videos, this will end anyways. This will change and move into something different and morph into something else when it moves out into the open and there's a catalyst. And unfortunately, with these kind of events, historically, it is always the crisis that is the catalyst. Human beings, unfortunately, individually we can be pretty smart. Collectively, we seem to have to manifest this kind of utter craziness until we will stay in denial and try to keep the status quo until that is no longer possible. We will do that. That is absolutely what the majority of people will do. And if you try to take people out of that, they don't like it. The vast majority do not want it. There is a percentage that do. I don't want to talk in fallacies. Maybe more people want it than I realize, but it doesn't seem to manifest into anything different. So anyways, in summation, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. In summation, live your life, make connections in the real world. Do not give your mind and your thought process over to their myopic, deranged insanity. Don't plug in to be constantly, and you're setting yourself up for staying terrified at looking all this stuff. I mean, a lot of the times there's a lot of events that happen, and I am like, sometimes I don't even talk about certain things because what is this going to do? Is this going to be a catalyst so that people are actually doing something so they feel empowered by it? Or is this something that people are going to feel so afraid of, so terrified, so despondent, and not having any real ability to change anything individually, that it just moves people into being paralyzed, depressed, fearful, and not living their lives? And I think that's what a lot of this, unfortunately, has become. And I don't want that for people, because I've had it for myself, and it's miserable. It's not the way I want to live. Not anymore. Even if it all falls apart tomorrow, I'll have the day. Better that than give myself up or give ourselves up to that. Especially since the catalyst has to happen, and in a way, the sooner some of this, the crazier they get, the sooner it's going to break. And I think I think the sooner that this breaks, the less painful it's going to be. The longer it gets drawn out, it's going to be worse. So it's like, when is it going to break? So there's that. Okay. That's it. I love you guys. Have a good day. Go out in the real world. I'm going to go check on my cantaloupes. I got some cantaloupes. Very exciting. My cucumbers are flowering. My tomatoes are flowering. My hedgehog is in his pineapple right now, like SpongeBob. He's got like a SpongeBob SquarePants pineapple. He's sleeping in it. All's good with the world. All's good with the world.
Let me add myself to the stage. I look at something like that. It just brings like joy and peace to my heart. Is it just, for someone who was so loud and so animated, it was just such a calming, such a calming message. Like, there is hope for humanity as long as humanity gets its stuff together. What are your thoughts? Hello there.
I'm having a little bit of trouble with my volume. I can barely hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I mean, I can, but it's very faint.
Okay, well, yeah. So what are your thoughts on that video?
I really don't know.
Oh,
I only caught like the last half end of it. That's about it. So
what did you think of the?
I was trying to watch it, but like I said, I can barely hear.
Oh, well. All right. Well, on that note, yeah, and I will just say then it was great just listening to her again. So one final time. And on that note, this will be another edition of the. It's just a beautiful thought when someone like her is just. There are so many elements. And it was just great that she was able to. Our guy Adam Hammond says RIP friend. I agree. And on that note, it's just beautiful just seeing a message like that. And I think her video, that last one should be replayed at least once a month. just so people can understand how the world works. Hello, Jennifer. How's life? How's everything? And because I think it's such a beautiful, I don't know, just such a beautiful, peaceful video that just explains everything perfectly about humanity and what's wrong with it and how it can all change and how it can be better. It's really weird. It's very pessimistic and yet very hopeful. So there's pessimism and optimism in it at the same time. So good to see you too. Well, we're wrapping up anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Anyhow, on that note, this has been another edition of The Harsh Reality. We thank you all for a Harsh Reality Saturday Night at the Movie feature presentation. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Saturday night. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. And tune in, and then tune in on about a few minutes. Tune in if we'll just want to have late night random happenings. We'll see on the old page. So take care. Let me sign out then. Fuck it. It's just thank you, Adam. All right, let's just end that then.